All right, mate. So your marriage isn't great. I know that's not news to you. It's probably not what you don't already know, but what you may not know is why nothing that you've tried hasn't worked yet and what actually does work. Maybe you see other people that have been longer relationships that are still alive, still passionate, still deeply connected, and you wonder how. Did they just fluke it in who they married? Or is there something that they're not sharing with other people? I'm going to walk you through exactly why nothing you've worked has changed long term and what you can actually do about it. Now, the fact that you're watching this tells me you're a man who takes accountability, who takes responsibility and ownership, and in your career, you're pretty successful. Your career or your business is doing well. You've got all the base needs met in life, and that's probably one of the most confusing things. Like at work, everyone respects you, everyone trusts you, everyone looks to you for solutions, but at home, it's not the exact same. Actually, it's probably the opposite. Maybe you get treated more like an apprentice at home. You feel like nothing you do is good enough. You feel like you're walking on eggshells, or you're reactive, you get defensive, or maybe even at the point of just withdrawing, because every single time there's a point of conflict, it escalates. It escalates. You get defensive, your wife doubles down harder, and then you withdraw. Maybe you over apologize, you just give in, and then there's just this cold, silent distance. Maybe she's still escalating, or maybe she's at the point where she's just given up in bringing anything to you because she's seen the pattern that repeats over and over again, and now she's starting to just withdraw, to just handle it herself, thinking, what's the fucking point? Because every time I do, he gets defensive, he justifies, he explains, and then he withdraws, and then I'm left here to do this all alone anyway. And you've probably been in this cycle for a while, maybe even a few years. Maybe you've tried therapy, you've tried counselling, you've read some books, you've listened to podcasts, maybe you've even done a few courses, had a few coaches, and nothing has worked long term. Maybe they worked for a short amount of time, like you felt some change, you felt things getting better, maybe you handled some situations differently, and you had some hope. Maybe your wife even had some hope of maybe it's gonna stay this way this time. But then eventually, maybe complacency set in, a new form of stress, something else happened, and then you were right back to where you started, repeating the same old patterns that got you there. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things for a capable and competent man, is feeling like he can't break the pattern. Knowing what he should do, knowing the patterns, having maybe some labels for it, but still repeating the same old pattern. And look at what it's costing you now, right? The connection with your wife and your kids, the peace at home, like your home and your marriage, where you're supposed to be able to be your most authentic self. It's supposed to be the place of the most peace, the most love, the most connection. But right now, it probably feels anything but that. Intimacy is maybe a trade, maybe robotic, automatic at best, if it's happening at all. Maybe it's even been weeks or months in between bouts, and you're starting to wonder if that'll ever come back. Maybe you tell yourself, or it's just a spell. Once the kids are older, once work settles down, once all this happens, then we'll have time for each other. We'll go on more dates, and we'll rekindle that spark. But you've been saying that for a while now, and nothing has changed. And if what comes back in this process resonates with you, because look at the lessons, the way that you're showing up, what you're role modeling to your kids. You'll be able to find a link as well, conversation, and what they're learning. But for now, from the way that you show up, or don't. Take the husband performance, the way that you connect with their mother, school community, or don't. The way that you handle disagreements and tensions, and the way that you express and receive love from each other. What you're showing to them. The standard that they will then expect to give and receive from their partners in the future. And then even looking into the future, what it might cost you if nothing changes. Not just in terms of the lack of intimacy, the lack of trust and respect and the ideal marriage, but what does a split home look like? What does a divorce cost you financially? What does that peace cost you in terms of the father that you want to be? The man that you become that gets divorced because he had the capacity to change, but didn't. That's what the real cost is. Your net worth halved, plus the cost in divorce lawyers and everything else that comes with it, but also the broken peace and the changes that it has, not just for you and your marriage, obviously, but for your kids as well. And that's what really digs at a lot of men. And if you're watching this, you're not willing to accept that future lying down. So now let's talk about why this matters and how we can change it. Because despite what all of those things you've tried have told you, the real issue isn't communication. It's not more time together. It's not more date nights. It's not rekindling, asking yourselves these 21 questions to understand your partner better and then having more date night ideas or more fun flirting games or apps or anything like that. Those are all surface level. Those are all behavioral changes that don't actually change what got you here in the first place. What got you and your marriage to this point in the first case. It's probably not a lack of date nights. It's not a lack of communication. You communicate very effectively at work with the team that you lead, your clients, your employees, your staff members, your other co-founders. You communicate just fine. So it's not communication. You're not illiterate. What actually needs changing is the man showing up at home. Because there's a different level of exposure and stakes at work and in the business versus at home. At work, yeah, sure, you might lose some dollars, you might lose some efficiency or some clients, but you can recoup those. You know how to manage those. But at home, it's different. The disagreement, the tension, it feels personal. It feels like you will lose something that you need to survive, which is partly true. Because the part of you running the show at home, the part of you that gets defensive, the part of you that withdraws, the part of you that people pleases, the part of you that's showing up that created this dynamic in the first place, is still operating from a survival standpoint. A point when it was created when you were much younger, that it needed that to survive because it didn't have the capacity and the resources that you, the adult, have available now. And so there's 3 layers to making this change. I'm going to walk you through them right now. And this will make so much sense as to why nothing else has worked and what actually needs to change to make this a long-term change. Not one that you need to keep on top of these habits and, keep showing up to therapy every fucking week to make this a permanent change, but giving you the understanding, the tools, and the identity change that make this a long-lasting change for you, your marriage, and even for your kids. So the first layer is your nervous system. I'm going to try and put a little diagram up here so we'll see how good my editing skills are. The first layer is your nervous system. Because if you're still stuck in fight or flight mode, you are reactive. That's why in these moments that you get reactive, you get defensive, you withdraw, only after the conversation do you realize, fuck, I did it again. I didn't even choose that. I felt like I didn't have control of myself in that moment. It's because your nervous system is dysregulated. It's operating from a fight or flight response. And as long as that is still the main driver, no amount of tools, tactics, mental frameworks will override a dysregulated nervous system. That's why it feels automatic, because it is. It's there to keep you alive. It's not here to save your marriage or keep you happy or anything else. And so it has done its job phenomenally. But the first layer is regulating that nervous system, slowing things down, creating a gap between the stimulus, the trigger, and our response. Slowing things down. So what we're doing is introducing choice. So we get to choose how we handle these situations instead of automatically responding. The next layer is, like I've hinted at before, the parts of you. The part of you that gets defensive, the part of you that people pleases, the part of you that withdraws, the part of you that takes things personally. Our mind is not one mind. Every single human on this planet talks to themselves. Maybe even argues with themselves. Maybe you've even said phrases like, a part of me wants to do this, a part of me wants to do that. For me, as a parent, I love my son to death. There's a part of me that wants to spend every single moment with him. But there's a part of me some days that I can't wait till that guy goes to bed because I would love to sit in silence for 5 fucking minutes. Neither is right, neither is wrong. These are all simply just parts of us. Again, these are not flaws. This does not make you have split personality disorder. These are simply protection strategies. Protective parts designed to keep you safe, But the cruel irony of these parts that are still running to keep you safe, that are operating from a place when you were much younger, are actually the same parts of you that are pushing your marriage away. The part of you that gets defensive is trying to protect you from being seen as wrong or the one at fault. Because it learned that if I'm not wrong, if it's not my fault, then I won't lose love. I won't be abandoned. Even though that's exactly what it's creating. The version of you that likes to people please, that wants to say yes to everything, even though you want to say no, believes that if you put everybody else first, if you meet everybody else's needs, then they will meet your needs. You won't get left out. You won't get left behind. And that's how you have to earn love. See, all of these parts have a strategy to keep you safe, despite it not being the one that you would like to use. But when we come to understand the true role of these parts and actually get to update them, we get to choose how we respond in these moments. Just like we created that gap between the stimulus and the response in our nervous system, we create the space between the part of us and the adult self. Just to give you a brief experience of feeling this, just whatever part of you is whatever pattern is most alive for you and your marriage right now. Maybe it's the defensiveness, maybe it's the people pleasing, maybe it's the withdrawing. Say, I am defensive. I am a people pleaser. Say it out loud. Notice what happens in your body when you say that. Now remember that. And now say out loud, a part of me is defensive. A part of me is taking this personally. A part of me is a people pleaser. Nice and slow. And so feel that difference. You feel that gap. That gap between yourself and that part of you. That's where we get to choose how we respond. In that gap is where we, the adult self, get to lead these parts from the resources and the capacity that we have now as a grown adult, not from a child trying to protect us, which is what's been happening up until this time. And now, so the first two layers, the nervous system and the parts, we're essentially getting to baseline. We're now getting to a level of choice. We're not being reactive from a dysregulated nervous system. We're not operating from a protective part of us that's running a strategy that was born when we were 5, 7, 10 years old. We are now in the driver's seat as the adult, with the strength, the capacity, the bandwidth that we have available as the man that we are today. And now we get to choose. But what do we choose? When we have choice available and it's not filtered through the lens of keeping everybody else happy, what everybody else wants. Now it's, who do I want to be? What is the type of man and the leader that I have the capacity to be and the potential to be? This is where we install the new identity. The masculine presence in your identity. This is where you get to choose your direction in life. You make a decision from this grounded place, from this is the best decision for me, for my family, and where we're going. Not out of being reactive, not out of people pleasing, not out of trying to protect ourselves from this harm. It's knowing that we can handle this in whatever comes. This is where we embody the energy of a grounded masculine man. This is the energy that makes your wife desire and feel attracted and pulled towards you, because you become magnetic, because you're doing things for who you are, not through the lens of, well, if I do this, she'll find me attractive. If I do this, it'll get her in the mood and then want to sleep with me, through these covert contracts. This is the deepest level of presence. The magnetic energy and presence and charisma that you can embody, because it's who you are at your greatest potential, at your most authentic self. Not performing, not wearing another mask. And this is where everything else becomes effortless. If you just try to perform the new behaviors, you try to perform confidence, perform leadership, perform staying calm in conflict, perform this version of you, it won't last long. And maybe you've tried that. Maybe you've read books on how to handle conflict with your wife, how to lead her better, how to be more charismatic, how to be more masculine. And they've given you all these behavior changes, but it felt fake. Or maybe you could wear that mask for a little bit and then eventually it came off because your identity didn't change. The protective parts of you were still strong because they never got addressed. When you get to this level, everything feels effortless. You have a deep inner sense of peace that no one can fuck with because it's who you are and who you want to be. Not for anybody else other than yourself. And you know that your wife and your kids and your family benefit than nothing else. Benefit more than nothing else from you being in this state. And this is the work that I have walked through, that I walk other men through. One of my clients, Clint, he came to me after having been given a 9 to 12 month ultimatum from his wife. She said, "You've got that long to change for good, otherwise we're getting a divorce." And she didn't want to draw that line in the sand. She loved him, loved their 2 daughters to absolute death, loved their family. But she'd had enough. She'd had enough of him being on this cycle of them feeling shit, being in this pain, forcing a change, him going to counselling, going to therapy, reading the books, and making a change for a couple of months because he could be so focused on it. But eventually, because he didn't address the root cause, would slip back into the same cycle. So she had to draw the line in the sand. Literally within 8 weeks. 8 weeks, they went from sleeping in separate bedrooms, divorce on the line, addressing things from the root cause. He's no longer reactive, no longer defensive, no longer taking things personally. And he's even said to me, I'm not just performing things differently. I don't have to think about handling things differently, showing up differently. It's just me. I just am this way now, and it feels so effortless. I've never been here before. Through the years of therapy, the years of counseling, everything, trying to do it on his own, had never made it this far. In 8 weeks. And then, even after a conversation that would have had him going off the deep end, threatening his relationship, tearing everything apart, he decided to draw a line in the sand and said, if this is going to work, I'm a new man, we need a new relationship. And he could hold that direction, hold that boundary from this calm, grounded place because of the man that he's become. And that direction, that presence, was so magnetic to his wife that she wholeheartedly agreed. And with that weekend, they had moments of connection and understanding that they hadn't had in years. Even to the point they got to share their first kiss. Their first true, genuine kiss in months. That even took him by surprise. Not because of what he was performing. Not because of what he said or even did. But because of the way that he was showing up. The way that he was proving this is the man that he is today. If one of my other clients came to me after he had filed for divorce, in hindsight, he thought that might have been a mistake, and he started to realize that maybe I'm the problem here. Maybe I'm the one that needs to change. Maybe she's not a narcissist. Maybe this is all on me. And within 10 days, he was calmer. He was more present. He was able actually to communicate with his wife and lead her to points of resolution and connectedness. And they both started to feel hope. That this change is what they actually needed. That they could maybe even love each other again and call this divorce off. In such a short amount of time, because we address the root cause. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that he's done and dusted and that's everything. But that's how fast you can see change and feel change, and even your wife experience it, when you address the root cause. And now all of these men are very competent, very capable. Each of them earning over 6 figures a year. Have tried multiple other avenues, therapy, counselling, have tried everything else that they could get their hands on. So these people aren't new to change, aren't new to self-development. But the methods and the behavior change all focuses on the symptom. not the root cause. And these are just two examples of what happens when you actually change the root cause, when you update your identity through this process. Not just put a new mask on, not just waste your time and energy and repeating cycles, focusing on the symptom. And so if you've watched this far, you already know something needs to change. You've probably had enough of repeating this cycle. You probably maybe even had enough of yourself because you're frustrated that you've tried to change, you've tried to do all these things, and nothing has stuck long term. Because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. The first step now is to go and do the husband performance score. This is a 4-minute diagnostic. It's 12 questions. It's going to highlight to you how you're showing up in the marriage and give you a personalized profile and roadmap on what you need to do to change. This will highlight things that other people probably haven't highlighted to you before. Exactly how you're showing up, and not to blame you, but to highlight patterns and things that are in your power to change. That is the power in this. There is so much more power and control in your ability to change for yourself and for your marriage that so many men underestimate. Notice that in both of the clients that I gave you, their wives did not have to change a single thing. That all came from the way that they were showing up when they addressed the root cause. It'll show you the patterns that are coming up in your marriage and in your life that are here for you to change. Then, if you're ready, you can go and join the free school community. In the school community, there's more resources. There's more videos like this, which will highlight these patterns and give you actionable items on what you can do to start to make this change now.